All right, welcome in. It's First and Pod. Thank you for being with us during the NFL offseason, a league that has no offseason, because next week the schedule's out. The games that we already know that are going to happen are going to be put in an order. It's very exciting. I'm Danny Parkins. He's Andrew Fillipponi. Leave us a 5-star review. Tell a friend about it. Hi, Pony. How are
Don't undersell the schedule release.
I love the schedule release. I love it.
I'm already working my molds to try to get the entire Steelers schedule before it comes out that night, May 9th. I'm going to be in California next week, so we're going to have to fool around.
Tonight is May 9th. It was supposed to be out May 9th.
That's right. That's right.
It was today was the original schedule release day, but they pushed it reportedly because of the Christmas Day schedule situation.
So which is why we're doing post-draft power rankings on this podcast episode and not draft schedule release, which screwed me because I was going to take next week off going to California. So we're going to have to find a way to get me on that podcast because I can't miss schedule release podcast. I mean, priorities, man. First trip to Disneyland with my daughter, that's fine and dandy, but it's not schedule release.
You're already taking Stella to Disneyland?
Well, my sister lives in Orange County. So we're going to go out there. We're going to do the San Diego Zoo. We're going to do a Padres afternoon game. We're going to do some beach time. And we're going to go to Disneyland one day. Yeah. You're saying that like I just made a reckless decision is what I'm sensing from you.
Well, listen, I mean, obviously she won't remember it. So it's exclusively for you guys. And so you'll see her be happy and get some adorable pictures, and you'll spend a fortune and be wildly inconvenienced. So it's a real
But it's not like a Disney World trip where you go down there and it's 5 days and 5 parks and whatever else. Among the things we're doing in California, it's a one-day experience, and it's not the crux of the trip. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's better.
That makes a big difference.
That's better for sure. But I mean, you're making me feel like a bad parent. I got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and they haven't been to Disneyland or World. So I got to get on that.
All right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to rotate and go back and forth. So right now, these rankings, they're not even entirely clear to us because you'll name a team and then I'll rank the next one. And we'll go back and forth until we get all the way down to 32.
Yes. The Kansas City Chiefs.
I thought you were going to say the Bears.
The Kansas City Chiefs are not the favorites to win the Super Bowl right now.
No, they're not.
But it would be disrespectful to what they have accomplished and who they have. Do I think they have the best roster 1 through 53? No. But they have the best coach, the best quarterback, and they tend to win Super Bowls. So where I come from, that is a team that deserves to be the top spot in the First and Pod power ranking.
All right.
Do you have any disagreement?
I don't like to be the guy that says it's not going to happen because we've never seen a team that's gone 3 years in a row. I don't think that's a sound enough argument to just say because the 94 Dallas Cowboys couldn't do it, or because the 2005 Patriots couldn't do it, we just rule out Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. They're going to be really good again. I think Kelsey and the way he came alive in the playoffs, is this going to be another situation where he paces himself through the regular season and he saves his best for January and February? The Rashee Rice thing keeps getting worse with another new incident. I know they drafted Xavier Worthy, and the Bills should be, really the rest of the NFL is going to hate the Bills for that trade. And you trust Spagnuolo to make the Snead loss not feel as impactful as one of the best defensive coordinators of all time. So, yeah, I mean, it's chalky, but I'm not going to sit here and make an impassioned reason for why they shouldn't be number one, having gone back-to-back.
All right, who's next?
Texans.
Okay, that is for content and engagement.
No, it's not. It's my honest take on things. We're trying to come up with teams that can actually knock them off and win the whole thing. And I think if that's CJ Stroud's rookie year, if that's him when he's learning the NFL, there's absolutely no reason, and I mean this, there's no reason why regular season he can't be more prolific than Mahomes and win the MVP this year. Mahomes threw 16 interceptions, I think, to 27 touchdowns, or 14 interceptions to 27 touchdowns. He had a decent regular season and an incredible playoffs. Stroud getting digs into that offense. Second year, Slowick didn't get another job. There's no reason why they can't be the best offense in the league with a really good defensive coach and Will Anderson going into a second year with Hunter coming over from Minnesota. They absolutely should be on the short list of teams that can knock them off for the Super Bowl. So I don't know why this is, you think, a hyperbolic thing. No, this is how I honestly feel.
Well, there's 8 teams that have better Super Bowl odds than the Houston Texans. You should be hammering them at 16-1. Right?
I agree. And so should you.
Listen, I like Houston a lot. I think that what Stroud did was incredible.
Apparently you don't, because you're already chastising me for this.
Hold on a second. I can like the Texans and think that they're going to be very good and like the Danielle Hunter thing and like the Stephon Diggs thing and everything that they've done and think that Stroud is legit and the real deal. They got one of the best wide receiver trios in the NFL and all of those things that you said, and think that they should be 6 instead of 2.
Among the teams that you're going to bring up in the next 5 or 6 slots, no team has more growth potential than them. I think I've seen the best. You don't agree?
No, I agree with that, but that suggests that they have to close the gap. They have to catch the other teams that are in front of them. Like, I understand what you're doing. You're projecting but I would say that the growth that they will hopefully have them catching some other teams. I'm not sure about passing. Like, number 3, San Francisco 49ers. You think that the Texans have a better roster than the Niners?
Do I think that the Chiefs have a better record? Do I think the Chiefs have a better roster than the 49ers?
No. Do you think that the Texans have a better roster than the Niners?
I don't know if that's necessary, because you just put the Chiefs ahead of the 49ers too.
But they've got Mahomes and Reed and have won back-to-back Super Bowls, man. The Texans won 1 playoff game against Cleveland at home. That's not
with a rookie quarterback.
Yes, with the rookie quarterback. But let's not be comparing the body of work of DeMeco Ryans, Bobby Slowick, and CJ Stroud to Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. Like, that just feel like, listen,
you're right. We never see second-year quarterbacks like Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson or Ben Roethlisberger or Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. I get it. Okay. I mean, listen, I get nothing out of this. My name is going to be on these power rankings just next to yours. So no one's going to know that you did the evens and I did the odds. They're just going to see the Texans, and I'll have to live with it in my Twitter mentions just like you will. That's fine. But I'll take the team that has the best 2 through 53 roster in the NFL and one of the best coaches in the NFL. And
more Purdy slander. You can't help yourself when making the ranking to say 2 through 53, which is a direct shot at the guy who, honestly, I thought acquitted himself very well in the Super Bowl last year.
He did. I agree with you. We did that Super Bowl show together. I agree. But, I mean, he's not a top 5 quarterback in the league.
CBS Sports had him ranked second, and I don't know who made the list, but you think I'm doing clickbaity stuff? That was a clickbaity thing.
Yeah, because, I mean, he finished number 1 in QBR.
Which, by the way, do you like QBR as a stat?
Not particularly.
Stroud's was in the 50s.
Yeah, that seems wrong.
I mean,
is that not enough touchdowns? Average.
What's that?
Is that because not enough touchdowns?
I don't know.
And I know that it values some on rushing, but like he had Stroud had 4,300 yards and better than a 4-to-1 touchdown interception ratio.
I still don't think it's a lock that Ayuk and or Samuel, well, one of them will be on the team for sure. I don't think it's a lock that both guys are on the 49ers roster opening day. I think there's a lot of Belichick arrogance and Shanahan. And if those guys really grouse about their contracts and they can flip one of them for a first-round pick before the season starts, if they're threatening to hold out, I think they'll still do that.
I think that that's certainly possible. I mean, Pearsall's decent insurance for that, and we've seen them be down one skill position player before and still be very, very good. So I still think the depth of that team, they're the team with the fewest weaknesses, and they get my guy Hufanga back at safety, which I think takes their defense from like very good to great. So I think that that's massive for them on the defensive side of the ball.
4 is going to be the Bengals. I'm going to take a team that missed the playoffs last year and elevate them to 4th. The Burrow quotes, I love them. The guy has such swag to him and such belief in himself. And there are some people out there, talking heads, that think that too much has been made of that second half performance against the Chiefs, that the Chiefs were rattled by what they did at the end of the first half against the Bengals by having the clock run out at the 1-yard line. And the Bengals have gotten too much credit because of what happened in that one game. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I think that Burrow, as long as he's healthy, I don't know why I'm knocking on wood. It's actually not good for my Steelers for him to be healthy. But they're running it back with these receivers. I thought they killed the draft. They bolstered their defense, which badly needed it in free agency with Stone. I think Burrow's going to throw 35 to 40 touchdown passes, and they're going to win the AFC North this year and knock off the Ravens. I've got them up to 4th.
Listen, I love Burrow, and I'm with you on the swagger, and I think that he can be the generation's Brady in terms of like building a team around him, not 7 Super Bowls, but just in terms of like how he plays, your belief in him in the fourth quarter, all of that stuff. The wrist injury sounds serious because he is not the athlete that if he plays at 80%, you feel like you still have an elite player, like a Josh Allen or a Mahomes or a Herbert or even a Stafford. So the wrist better be healthy and not weaken his arm strength, because it's not like he already has he doesn't have a top 10 arm in the NFL in terms of arm strength. So that's my only concern there. Hendrickson seems pissed to be a Bengal still. Higgins seems pissed to be a Bengal still, but it seems like they're going to just try to run it back and plow through all of this stuff. And listen, I'm with you. When Joe Burrow is healthy, they win playoff games. So I don't hate the pick. But
speaking of Brady, by the way, the roast, I went back and watched it. I saw all the clips that went viral. You're way more into the comedy stuff than I am. So most of the roasters, other than Jeff Ross, were complete anonymous human beings to me.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if I've grown to appreciate or like someone in such a short amount of time more than I now like Nikki Glaser. She has skyrocketed up my human power rankings.
She's amazing.
Ever since that event. She's coming to town on this tour she's doing that starts in the fall. And I am so pissed that the day she's in Pittsburgh is a December Sunday, because with football, I'm just not going to want to do. If it was a weekday, I would have been there 100. Well, I guess maybe not, because Monday and Thursday too are troublesome. But yeah, I really right now want to see her comedic chops in person, because that was awesome. That was some of the best comedy I've ever seen in my life. As a Dave Chappelle supporter and people like that who I put on a pedestal, I thought that was just brilliant.
She was incredible. The roast was incredible. I could do an hour on it. The swing that Netflix did to put that thing together.
How much do you think they paid Brady?
I mean, I think that it was obviously 7 figures, but I think that, he was an executive producer on it, and I think that it's part of a deal. I think that there will be future projects with Tom Brady's new production company and Netflix. So I don't believe that it was like a $20 million fee or anything crazy like that. But I think that it was like a tentpole event to get into the business of Tom Brady and Netflix. That's my prediction for that. But Tony Hinchcliffe also was incredible.
See, I've seen a few of his things before. He was not a complete new entity to me, but he also, I thought, hit it out of the park. I thought Drew Bledsoe was quite good as
Bledsoe
far
was
as
very good.
athletes are concerned.
Tony Hinchcliffe's joke about Bert Kreischer and his liver.
Burger King and Tiger King, that was good.
Tiger King, Burger King, Martin Luther King, Rodney King was that is one of the best. I am like, to say a student of comedy is maybe slightly overstating it, but I've watched a lot of comedy, been to a lot of shows, read a lot of books on it, listened to a lot of podcasts. Like I'm very in tune with it. That is one of the best constructed jokes I've ever heard. It was so crisp and smart and well delivered.
Who's 5 for you?
So 5 for me, I think they deserve the respect, is the Baltimore Ravens. I know, because you put Cincy up there and you're an AFC North guy, and I know. Their quarterback in his first year in the new system won the MVP.
And then patted himself on the back for beating the Ravens in a playoff game in a response to one of my tweets in a video he made.
He's on the Ravens. You said for beating the Ravens.
Oh, for beating the Texans. My bad. Yes.
Yeah. But this is pretty simple to me. They're the 1 seed last year. Lamar's in his prime. I actually think that there should be a step forward for the overall production of the offense. And I think that Zay Flowers actually has a pretty big runway in terms of his talent versus his production and some of the production that he left on the field last year. So Baltimore at 5 feels a little disrespectful, honestly. I think they're a very good team. We need to pick up the pace.
I know. Well, we got into the comedy tangent, and I thought you would be fine with that. And here you are.
No, listen, we're good, but I'm just saying.
Whipping me like Mystic Dan here to get us through this freaking podcast. I'm very tempted to do something at 6 here, and I think, should I just pull the trigger on it and do it?
Yeah.
Bears.
Oh my God.
Bears.
People are going to think that I did that.
Duh, Bears at 6. Well, you sold me on it. You're so persuasive as a talk show host. No wonder you're in such demand. You're on every podcast. Robert Mays, Willie Mays, Bullet Bob Hayes. I mean, you're everywhere lately. And you're saying things that get my attention. Yeah. Why not?
Okay.
Why not? Why not us? No better situation for a rookie quarterback. Best receiving core in the NFL. Offensive line better than people think. Defensive coach, Montez Sweat. Bears.
Oh God, I hope you're right.
What do you mean? Hope I'm right? I'm manifesting your opinion here. I'm taking everything you've said and I'm actually putting it into action with these rankings. And unlike you, who's a coward and just says these things and then does not actually have the balls to rank it.
Dude, I have real American dollars wagered on the Bears here, but I don't think that they, in a power ranking before playing a game, should be in front of the Detroit Lions, who were in the NFC Championship game last year. They went 1-1 against the Bears last year. I understand that. The Bears upgraded.
We'll see Lions hangover. We'll see about them trying to do it back-to-back years. Let's see.
Well, they finished 2 years ago very strong.
Yep.
And then they were strong wire to wire last year from opening night through the playoffs.
But they didn't blow a chance to get to the Super Bowl at the end of the 2022 season. They did at the end of last season.
The Bears won 7 games, buddy.
Okay. How many games did the Bengals win the year before they went to the Super Bowl?
Okay. Listen, I don't want to be in a position to argue against the Bears.
That's what it sounds like you're doing right now.
No.
You're sounding very anti-Bears.
I'm not anti-Bears. I just oh God. Okay. Great. I love it. Well, then 7 Detroit Lions. You know how I feel about that team. Listen,
I don't
think
know
that
if I'm for sure if I know how you feel about them. You think they're going to be just fine this year? It sounds like.
Yeah, listen, I think that they are still an excellent football team that is built really well and is coached really well. And Ben Johnson somehow hasn't left, and they've got a very good offensive line. And I would have liked a little bit more of an addition at receiver, but with Gibbs and Laporta, that is receiving production that do not come from receivers. So I think that they are the type of team that is just very few weaknesses on the Detroit Lions and no weaknesses on the offensive side of the ball. And it's an offensive league. And I can't believe the amount of continuity they've been able to have through this run, both in personnel and coaching. So, yeah, Detroit Lions.
I think defense is still shaky. But
I mean, it's certainly it's the weakness, like relative to the offense for sure. But I still think they're very, very, very capable.
all right. A few different places I can go with this next one. We're entering that part of the rankings where there are teams that I feel like I'm either going to, there are teams that have been in this part of the power rankings for a few years that I don't feel great about. And then there are maybe 2 or 3 teams that were lower last year that I'm contemplating jumping up to this 8th spot. So I guess I'd rather go with a team that I think is ascending than a team that is declining here. So what the hell? I'll put the Jets in this spot.
Yeah. Spencer, can we on the graphic?
No, we can't. No, Spencer, don't give this guy the easy way out here and try to like give him an out that says, "Oh, I had nothing to do with this." You hijacked the entire podcast.
On the graphic that
No,
Spencer
no.
I want it known that no. It stands as is. Standing as is fine, and my name can be on it. That's fine. I want it noted that I picked the odds and Pony picked the evens.
No one's going to even see that. It's going to be like if we do that, it'll be in very fine print at the very, very bottom. Okay,
that's fine. I want it in fine print. I want it in fine print at the bottom. Because, yeah, dude, I like their offseason. I think that what they did with the coaching staff, bringing them back on offense, is insane. But Rodgers wants them. He's
the offensive coaching staff is Aaron Rodgers is going to coach them.
I know that, but they obviously did a horrible job last year when he went down. So I didn't even consider the possibility that they would be fired. But it's obviously they're underqualified. I think we learned that last year, and they added a bunch of veterans who are injury prone, who need to protect a veteran quarterback who we now have to assume is a little injury prone. So it's a very boom or bust situation. They, if Rodgers sprains an ankle or something, Tyrod Taylor was a nice upgrade for them. He can keep them afloat as opposed to Zach Wilson. I don't hate the Jets this year, but I don't think they deserve this kind of respect. So I'm going to do the exact same thing that I did in the NFC North when I think you picked the wrong team, 6 instead of 7. Now with 8, I'm taking the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen has proven that he is the second best quarterback in football. To me, I was a Burrow over him guy, but with his injury, Josh Allen had contributed to 44 touchdowns last year. And yeah, he had 18 interceptions, no doubt about it, but that dude makes hero plays. And he is a playmaker. And I know that I am like a lone wolf here, and like not to me, he is the second best quarterback in football. And I'm a huge Herbert guy. And
you're confident in saying that you think when it's all said and done this year, that Allen will have a more productive season than Stroud. You feel good about that?
I think Stroud has arguably the best receiving trio in the NFL, and Josh Allen doesn't. But I do think that Josh Allen is more talented than CJ Stroud. So I do not think that Josh Allen is going to have a huge regression this year. And he will be a top 5 quarterback as a floor for him.
I think there's a chance Stroud gets to a point where he's making those incredible plays. He's not running around and throwing it 50 yards or 60 yards like Allen is. He gives you the wow plays, and he doesn't have the F up plays.
The interceptions.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, he needs to really up the production, though, in terms of the touchdowns generated to get anywhere near what Josh Allen gets to. So I'm comfortable with Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills at 9.
All right. Here's the team that I was going to put 8 when I got a little crazy with the Jets and you declared that this is such a farce. You don't even want to put your name on the power rankings anymore. You're like trying to divorce me. You're like trying to make it clear that there's only one sane person on this podcast, even though I feel like when we did some of these drafts last offseason, my drafts ended up better than yours. So,
some of them, we did a lot of drafts, buddy, but go on.
Well, there was a lot of time between the last football game and the start of the season. I'm putting Eagles 10. I actually think that there's and we talked about this when we looked at their roster before the draft and then after. I think there's a really good chance for them to bounce back this year. And it got so nasty and so ugly there at the end of the year. I think a lot of it has to do with the city they're in and the emotional, visceral reaction that goes on to anything negative with the Eagles. And I think it manifested. They're talking about how losing that big bodyguard hurt the team and just ridiculous stuff. But Fangio is a huge upgrade at defensive coordinator. Their defensive personnel, I still think, is one of the best groups in the league. And I think Hurts will be healthy and have a better season than he had last year. And they're one of the few offensive lines in the NFL that I think that could afford the loss of a Jason Kelce and not take a huge step back. So I feel good about putting them over the Cowboys and making them the first NFC East team in these power rankings.
I agree with you. I agree with everything. And I also thought
wow, there's a first so far. You've hated every single one of my rankings. And now finally 25 minutes in, you tip your cap to me.
Blind squirrel found the nut. Congrats, buddy. Listen, we talked about it in the draft show. Their pass defense was atrocious, and they got both Cooper DeJean and Mitchell, the cornerback from Toledo. So premium resources at their biggest weakness and health on offense. Their offense should be electric. So I have no problem with the pick. We'll go a little faster as we go through teams 11 through 32. More First and Pod after this. All right, back on First and Pod. Thanks for being with us. Leave us a 5-star review or tell a friend about the show, preferably both. Pony just is doing the evens. I'm doing the odds. Philadelphia, the 10th ranked team in our power rankings. I will stay in the NFC. It pains me to do it. The Green Bay Packers are the 11th ranked team in the NFL. Youngest offense in the league, largely brings everybody back. They go from Aaron Jones to Brandon Jacobs. Brandon Jacobs, 3.5 years younger than
Brandon Jacobs has been out of football for several years. You're talking about Josh Jacobs. Sorry. Josh Jacobs, 3.5 years younger than Aaron Jones. Raiders offense was a complete disgrace last year. I think in a great situation, can easily bounce back to being a top 5 running back in the NFL, which is exactly what he was 2 years ago when he had 1,600 yards and nearly 5 yards per carry. I think it's an awesome addition for the Packers. An expensive one, but they value and spend a lot of money on running back. And then on defense, they got rid of Joe Barry. They were 27th in DVOA on defense last year. They brought in Hafley, the head coach at Boston College, but who had been in the NFL as a defensive backs coach for 7 years, including with the Niners. And is he a Wani guy?
He's not a Wani guy, no.
Okay.
But he seems like he's a press man, single high safety. They added Xavier McKinney, one of the best safeties in football. He's going to have Stokes and Alexander as corners who are going to be aggressive and play how they actually should play. and he's going to infuse an attitude into a defense that was really passive. And they've got a lot of talent on that defense. So I loved the Packers offseason, unfortunately. So I have them at 11, and I honestly think by the end of the year, this might end up feeling low.
Better chance the Bears finish in first or last place in the NFC North.
First.
You can't have second. You can't have third. You got to pick 1 or 4.
I don't think they're – I'd be very surprised if they're the worst team in the division. I think Minnesota rookie quarterback.
That's because you hate J.J. McCarthy, even though you gave them an A in the draft.
Well, based on value, it was a pretty good draft for them. I think the Bears would be more likely to finish first. But I have them as a double-digit win team that's going to make the wild card this year.
Well, there's a team I don't want to make an argument for, so I'm not going to rank them here, even though it's a good time to do it. So I'm going to pass them and leave it to you, and you can give a very milquetoast, bland kind of, I feel like I'm obligated to rank them, even though that's the only reason why you would do it. I'm going to go the Jags at 12. They collapsed. They choked in the second half of the season. They were absolutely awful. They lost a lot of kind of litmus test measuring stick games last year in this pursuit of figuring out were they for real or not. It's like they came back from London on a high and then crashed and burned after that. So I'm still going to bet on, at this point in our rankings, Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence to be an upper echelon coach quarterback combination. They did lose Calvin Ridley, but honestly, I thought the season he had in Jacksonville last year failed to meet expectations. Brian Thomas is there now. Engram catches 100 balls as long as he's healthy. ETN's a threat in the passing game too. They've got big names on defense that got to play better than they have the last year or so. So I think the way that they finished last year has people turned off by them. But just like the Eagles at 10, I think the Jags have a chance to really bounce back this season.
I have no problem with that. I like the Armstead addition for the defensive line. I think that helps Trevon Walker and Josh Allen. Their secondary could be awful.
Yeah, oh, no doubt. I think that was a big mistake by them in the draft. I thought that they should have addressed that probably in the second round.
I thought that. I mean, what I was thinking about with them was if they would have signed Josh Allen earlier, they could have had the franchise tag for Ridley, and then that would have given them a lot more flexibility with the first pick in the first round pick. And then they would not have felt as compelled to do what they did with Brian Thomas, even though I like Brian Thomas and like him as a fit in that system. But they could have taken a corner in the first round and then had Ridley for one more year.
They should go sign Stephon Gilmore. He's still a good corner. He was not bad in Dallas last year. He's not what he was when he was the Defensive Player of the Year award. He's still a number 2 corner in the NFL and a good number 2 corner. So
yeah,
I don't know.
That would be a great thing for them. I'm in complete agreement. I assume you mean that you did not want to rank the Dallas Cowboys?
Correct.
Yeah. Listen, the Cowboys offseason is indefensible. It's indefensible. They're just letting other teams set the market and drive up the price on all of their superstar players at premium positions. Quarterback, receiver, edge rusher. It's a really, really bad way to do business. I have no idea what's going on. I assume that Dak Prescott will be on the Cowboys 12 months from now as the highest paid player in football. And that is their own fault because he earned it with a career year last year. And they've got no succession plan to move on from him. So their offseason was bad. They did not make a meaningful investment at skill position behind CeeDee Lamb. They had to bring back Zeke Elliott. Their offseason is indefensible. But they did score more points than any team in the NFL last year. So they collapsed in the playoffs, but it's not like it was a team that was bad by any means. In fact, for large stretches of time, they were dominant. So I do think 13 is probably a little low for what they deserve to be when they play a football game. But in terms of how they're actually running and operating the organization and the amount of turmoil that's around them, they are horrible. I was saying this earlier today on one of my many podcast appearances. Sometimes on these national shows, they just talk about the Cowboys because they're polarizing. Everyone has an opinion on them, and they have such a huge fan base, and they draw huge ratings. Now they actually deserve it. What are they doing with Dak Prescott, and what are they going to do with Dak Prescott? We were ahead of the thing on Trey Lance last year. I can't say that we're going to be ahead of this story because it's the Cowboys. No national media outlet's ever going to be behind it. But it's one of the most compelling stories in the NFL is why the hell are they playing a game of chicken with their franchise quarterback who they have to pay? So to me, it's a crazy offseason, but they're still a good team.
I actually think, though, to your point about how they've the kind of lack of moves in the offseason has created legitimate fodder. The problem is that I think everyone has the same opinion. That's the issue. I don't know if there's anybody that's really standing up and sticking up for the Cowboys, even wants to do that right now. Their fans are hacked off. Even their loyal to the hilt fans have either anger or apathy because of the way things have gone down. So it makes for a lot of people trying to find different ways to say the same thing, which is that the Cowboys have completely blown it this offseason. Speaking of not having a great offseason because of the draft, I'm putting the Falcons 14.
I love it.
I'm putting them 14 because the one thing about the Penix move that, in my opinion, is undeniable. If Cousins gets hurt, I don't feel like they're effed. That happened in Minnesota last year where they had to go get Josh Dobbs off the street. If Cousins doesn't come back from the Achilles injury and doesn't look like the same guy, and it's Matt Ryan at the end of his career, it's Eli Manning at the end of his career, it's one of those guys, you do have a viable insurance policy. I still would not have done it, but for the purpose of how do I view this team for this year? If the 36-year-old or 37-year-old quarterback does not immediately pay dividends, they do have a guy potentially that makes them interesting in a very poor division. So I'm putting them 14.
If you didn't, they were going to be 15. I'll say this. For me, they're this year's Detroit Lions. Last year, my biggest preseason bet was Lions to win the North minus 140. You can get the Falcons to win the NFC South at minus 120 right now. They're going to win that division, dude. They upgraded at coach, quarterback, and play caller. That seems pretty significant. And even if you don't like Darnell Mooney or think he got overpaid, they upgraded at wide receiver too. Also, whether you think that's about Rondale Moore or you think it's about Darnell Mooney, their pass rush was abysmal last year and people wanted them to use a first-round pick on it. I think their second, third, fourth, and sixth-round pick were all front seven guys. It's not like they threw no resources at it. So I hated the Penix pick and the logic behind it. Hated it. They could have traded down and taken Jared Verse, or they could have not paid Kirk Cousins $100 million, signed Christian Wilkins, and just drafted Michael Penix. Either one would have been more logically sound than what they did, but they still upgraded significantly at coach, play caller, and quarterback, and wide receiver too. So I think that they clearly are going to win that division. And whether or not that matters if they get blown out in the first round of the playoffs, that's for other people to decide. But minus 120 to win that division is a bet that I have already made, and I'll be putting more on it. My next team, I'm torn between two. And I'm going to go with the LA Rams because Stafford is so clearly still excellent. And with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp and what they did running the ball last year effectively, and then re-signing their guard and then signing Jonah Jackson and then drafting Fisk and Verse to replace Donald. It was like, invest in keeping Stafford healthy and invest in replacing your first ballot Hall of Famer. It was a great offseason. He's still a great quarterback. I put in a bet today at Matt Stafford at 25-1 to be league MVP.
Huh.
So I think
Why?
because I think their offense is going to hum, dude. I think their offense is going to hum. I think he's going to put up absolutely massive numbers. And if San Francisco has any injuries or takes a step back, and they win that division and overtake San Francisco, he's going to get a ton of credit for it. So I like the Rams a lot this year.
I'm worried about Kupp. I feel like he's shot, and I think his career might be over. I'm also, as a guy that loved them last year, I'm not going to have them where they were last season, losing, I think, conservatively, one of the 5 greatest defensive players of all time. And I'm also, I am a Stafford guy, but I am worried about the number of games he's going to play this year. I just think he's like, I think anytime he gets hit, if I'm a Rams fan, I become a basket case, because I'd wonder if he's going to get up and if it's going to be a finger or a hand or a wrist or an elbow or a shoulder. So, man, a guy that age to win MVP. Whew.
How old was Matt Ryan when he won?
Matt Ryan would have been in his probably like his 9th season as an NFL quarterback.
Right. Okay. So yeah, a little younger. Brady's last was probably Brady's the answer, right? For oldest MVP. He's got to be. Anyway, we got to keep moving. We're pacing for a 2-hour podcast. Let's go.
I'm next, right?
Yeah.
I'm just putting them here, and there might be teams that end up better than them or I like more on paper, but this is where they always are. Steelers, 16. Right in the middle of the NFL, just this world that they've inhabited now for years, since they went to their AFC Championship game in 2016. The coaches change, the coordinators come and go, the quarterbacks are different now that Ben's gone. There's renewed optimism about the offensive line because of the draft picks, and there should be, and they killed the draft. But when it's all said and done, and we've ranked a lot of AFC teams ahead of them, it's this climb every year to try to get to 10 wins max and piss blood to be the 6 or 7 seed in the AFC. And I think that's exactly who they are, just with different pieces this year, and hoping that they upset some team in the playoff and catch lightning in a bottle with one of their 2 quarterbacks.
So we don't have enough time, but I want to do something with you on the gambling. Like, you know what their win total is, right?
7.5.
Heavily juiced to the over.
Of course.
Well, right, but over would be a losing season.
They can piss me off all year, go 8-9, and you win your bet.
That's what I'm saying.
Yep.
Or you can wait for the juice to inevitably put the number to 8, and then the juice would, come down to more like even money, and you'd push at 8, and they'd have to have another winning season to win it. But it's like minus 185 right now on over 7.5. Listen, I think the Dolphins deserve to be ranked ahead of the Steelers, so I'm going to put the Dolphins here. I did not love their offseason. They're obviously healthier than they were last year when all of their edge rushers and pass rush got hurt. They invested in it more this offseason. When healthy, their offense is electric. They drafted the kid from Tennessee with crazy speed, so they added even more speed to the offensive side of the ball. They probably needed to do more things to bolster the offensive line and protect Tua and ensure that they could play January football and not just be such a finesse team, because we saw them in the Arctic at Arrowhead and they shriveled up. They don't have much physicality and ground and pound to them. But I don't think that there's 16 teams in the NFL better than them. So I'll put them at 17.
Well, the last 2 years, they've been a 6 seed and a 7 seed in the AFC playoffs. So that puts them better than 17, but not by
Correct.
too much. I'm surprised you didn't have the Stones. Apparently, you're starting to back off your guy because Justin Herbert and the Chargers are still here at 18 with a coach we all prefer and like a lot more than Staley. And we saw the instant impact that Harbaugh had when he went to the 49ers, and immediately they became a really good team and almost went to the Super Bowl, getting beat by the Giants because a punt returner couldn't hold on to the ball in that game at Candlestick Park. I'm going to take them here. And yeah, they've lost wide receivers that everybody knows, and they had to make some changes to their team because of their salary cap problems. But if you think that this is the best coaching that Justin Herbert is going to get, and he's a top 10 quarterback, then as Danny likes to say, in the delta of possible outcomes for the Chargers, finishing second to the Chiefs with 11 wins is in play. So that's why I'm going to put them 18.
Not going to argue with you. Cleveland is next. They won 11 games last year, and their roster is really damn good. Their quarterback is...
Is it?
Yeah. Listen, Chubb is injured. I thought that the Jerry Jeudy move was a pretty underrated move of the offseason. He doesn't have to be the number one receiver there because they have Amari Cooper, who was excellent last year. They still have Elijah Moore. And unlike the Cowboys, as soon as they traded a couple of day 3 picks for Jerry Jeudy, they extended him for like $50 million, $52 million. So he's making less than Christian Kirk is making, who signed that deal 2 years ago. So other guys have blown up the wide receiver market after him. And I understand I'm not saying he would be paid anywhere near A.J. Brown or CeeDee Lamb or what Jamar Chase will get or anything like that. But just all that contract's going to do is age well. So, and it helps you figure out if you've got any shot in hell at salvaging Deshaun Watson. So I thought the offseason made sense. I think the team is pretty loaded in terms of starters on both sides of the ball. And I think they're a solid team. And hopefully, I mean, Deontay Foreman's not great, but he's useful, and they'll get Chubb back at some point, hopefully. So got them at 19.
I think Stefanski could go from coach of the year to fired after this season for the Browns. I'm going to take the Seahawks 20. They're a team that I might bet to make the playoffs, even though I have them 20 in a league where 14 teams make it. Man, there's a lot riding on Geno Smith here because with Kenneth Walker and their 3 receivers, if he gets protected, he should put up big numbers. There's no reason for them not to be. I think if Jackson Smith and Jigba comes into his own in his second year, you've got some real weaponry. And the defensive coach, McDonald, comes over from Baltimore. You take Byron Murphy in the first round. It's year 2 for Devin Witherspoon. They could be, if Geno Smith plays like he did 2 years ago, you've got the potential for offensive fireworks and I think an upgrade in defensive coaching. So I would have put them ahead of the Rams. That's just me. And I'm surprised you didn't because you're more team Geno than I am. And if Geno Smith doesn't work, I think they will quickly go to Sam Howell because they have the offensive weapons where I don't think they'll mess around. And we know Howell, he can giveth and taketh. And I don't think they're going to have a lot of patience with Geno Smith if the offense is sputtering 3 or 4 games in.
I will take the Indianapolis Colts as our 21st team. And this is largely a bet on the upside of Anthony Richardson. We don't know if he can stay healthy. Obviously, it's been 1 year. He played 4 games. But in those 4 games, he looked so much better than he was supposed to look in terms of being ready. There might be 5 players in the world more gifted than him athletically, but there are not 7. Like his ceiling is insanely high. And I'm comfortable in saying that off of a 4-game sample. So the roster isn't terrible. And if they have a quarterback who can reach that potential, I am very intrigued by Indianapolis this year. They're like a sneaky fun team for me to watch this year. I was mesmerized when I watched
Mesmerized.
Dude, Anthony Richardson can throw the ball wherever the hell he wants with velocity, and he runs like crazy. Like that guy is you could tell that he's got a crazy high ceiling at the position. He just might get killed every year. So I'm in on I want to buy low on the Colts. Let's blitz through the latter third here.
Well,
Pony.
I'm going to go at 22, one of your favorite teams, the Cardinals. And their low win total, and Marvin Harrison Jr. to go with Kyler Murray, and a team that was way more game and way more competitive than the odds makers thought and a lot of critics thought last year. And instead of having to run the Clayton Tunes of the world and guys like that out there, we get to see that offense with McBride at tight end. I don't know how much longer James Conner can be that kind of runner, but they picked up the running back from Florida State in the draft, who I think has a chance to be a really good player. So look out for Arizona at 22. They're another sleeper team that could end up as the 6th or 7th playoff team in the NFC.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I do like Arizona. I'm on their win total over. When Kyler was healthy, they were the number 1 rushing team in the NFL last year. This will be their 2nd year in the system. 11 draft picks, Marvin Harrison, instant impact player, ton of youth. I do like them as an over team. I think you put them in front of at least one team that's incorrect, but I can't crush you for it, given that I'm going to be.
No, you kept the crushing for the first 25 minutes of the podcast. You've used up all your crushing.
We got to learn our lesson, man. Tampa. We got to learn our lesson. Baker found a home. They didn't tear it down when we said they should tear it down. They're a little old. They lost Jensen at center, but they drafted a kid in the first round who will plug and play. They're not good, but they're not bad. And that gives you a pretty high floor. And at this point, we're not talking about good teams for the most part. So I feel pretty comfortable that we underrated and disrespected Tampa. I mean, weren't they the last pick in our Super Bowl draft that you, me, and Nick did?
Well, then yes, and then after that pick, I had no choice but to take them, and then I made the case that they could be the Seahawks from the year before, and then that prediction was like wildly accurate. It was of all the things that got said in an hour and a half podcast, it might have been the most clairvoyant thought, and it was said at the very end of the show.
Yeah, it was very, very strong. And so yeah, I will put them. I'm trying not to disrespect them like we did last year. Tampa Bay 23.
Okay, you're going to hate my next one. I'm just going to come right out and say it. You're going to think that the crushing that you're going to sum it up the strength one more time to crush me. I'm putting the Panthers 24. Yeah. Let me tell you why I'm doing that. Right?
You are just
Hold on a second. Neither one of us liked Bryce Young as the number 1 pick coming out of Alabama. And we both were just shocked by how much he looked like a fringe starter and career backup last year. But we've seen a lot of number 1 overall picks look like absolute crap in their first year, or turn the ball over a lot, or play on awful teams. And suddenly in year 2, things completely change. He's got better receivers there. He should get better coaching than the wayward season, the chaotic season they had last year. Of the teams that are left, I think that's the quarterback that has the best chance to go from bottom 5 guy to top 15 guy.
That is ridiculous.
Wait a minute. So you don't think that it's even a possibility that he's a top 15 quarterback this year?
I think that it is more likely that Jaden Daniels, J.J. McCarthy, and Derek Carr are top 15 quarterbacks than Bryce Young as teams that are left on the board right now.
You didn't like Jaden Daniels. You didn't like J.J. McCarthy in the draft.
I don't. Situation matters, dude. J.J. McCarthy has Justin Jefferson and Kevin O'Connell. Jaden Daniels has the ability to run and has Dotson and McLaurin. These are not apples to apples comparisons.
He's got the head coach that turned the trajectory of Baker Mayfield's career around.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Xavier Legette.
Deontay Johnson, one of my favorites. Did you hear what Jerry Jones said about Jonathan Brooks? That's your starting running back.
Yeah. I like that pick.
Oh, I can tell by the way that you're fighting with me over the 24th ranked team in this podcast.
At the 57-minute mark. You challenged me to muster up a objection.
Yeah, and you did. What do you got next?
Minnesota Vikings. It's the best coach left on the board by far. Kevin O'Connell's a great coach.
Put him ahead of Dable?
Yeah, I do. Put him ahead of Dable. Yeah, I do.
Beat him head-to-head in a playoff game in Minnesota.
That's true. Kevin O'Connell, Minnesota Vikings, 25th overall.
I'll go Saints next. And the reason why I'll put the Saints 26 among the other teams is because of the stat that you had on our last podcast. They were statistically a good offense, and they were statistically a good defense. But yeah. I don't believe in them at all because their coach should have been fired. And I used to like Carr.
Yeah,
he was one of the most infuriating quarterbacks to watch in the entire league last year. I don't care what the numbers say. Charles Barkley said the other night that stats are overrated. They are with Carr last year. If you watched him play, if you watched this team week to week, there's no way you thought he had a good year. And that contract is ponderous. No, I'm down on the Saints. I put the Panthers ahead of them, but among the remaining teams, I think they're the best one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we've got a lot of bad teams at this point. Obviously, I'll say the Raiders. The Raiders still have elite players. Like, I know Max Crosby is great. I know Devontae Adams is great. They have an ability. They've at least used draft picks at premium positions like edge rusher and corner recently. This is not a huge ringing endorsement of them by any stretch of the imagination. But they are not relying on Jimmy Garoppolo. So that has to help. So I will reluctantly put the Vegas Raiders at 27.
All right. Jeez.
Yeah, it's tough.
You're not kidding. This is some real slim pickings, bro. I guess I'll do the Giants here. What I want to say is look at what they did 2 years ago when Daniel Jones stayed healthy, but that was such a smoke and mirrors operation. They had a good year where their record suggested that they were one of the better teams. We're in the last 8 teams standing in the playoffs. But their point differential, Jones still threw fewer than 20 touchdown passes. We like the neighbors pick. You and I both think he's going to be an instant impact player. I don't think the loss of Barkley is going to be as impactful. I really don't. I think they'll be able to make up for that loss. But yeah, I mean, just not really a ton to love about the Giants.
So we got 4 teams left: Titans, Commanders, Broncos, and Patriots. I'm going to take the Commanders and just say, like, of the 8 main units, right? All those teams offense, all those teams defense. what am I most confident in? It was between the Patriots defense and the Commanders offense, and it's just more of an offensive league. And at least Jaden Daniels will play right away. I don't know that Drake May will. So there's obviously some ceiling potential there. I could be wrong about him. So I'll take Washington on the off chance that they're a league average offense, which I think is at least in play.
I'll pick the Titans at 30. This is the NFL for you in a nutshell. There really is not year to year a big difference between 6-11 and 10-6 sometimes. A 6-11 team.
Well, one team plays 17 games, and a 10-6 team would only play 16.
Oh,
go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you.
No problem.
A 7-10 team compared to a 10-7 team, even like you might be able to find data points that suggest the 7-win team is better. I really think the Titans, you can make, I think, a cogent case for them to be a 9-win team. I don't think it's that difficult. With the Calvin Ridley signing, not that I'm a huge fan of him, but now at least you've got 3 viable threats at wide receiver. The Boyd signing too. Levis or Rudolph, pick your poison. At least you give yourself 2 swings at it. If Levis doesn't get it, you go to Rudolph and hope you find the quarterback that the Steelers got to make the playoffs last year, the way he played down the stretch. You lose Henry, of course, but in a way, maybe that actually frees them up and loosens them up because they're not now so dependent on one player. And it's a new offensive coach. You never know with an offensive coach, new offensive head coach sometimes can be a genius and completely change the outlook of a team. So at least that potential exists for Tennessee. They're 30th, but I honestly think they could finish anywhere from 4-13 to 10-7.
I'll take the New England Patriots at 31 and just say that their defense was pretty good for stretches last year. And maybe they'll be happy to be done with Bill Belichick and have some sort of rally around the coach bump. And we both like Drake May, and I hope he doesn't play for his sake. But obviously, if he does, there's a wide range of outcomes there. So it's kind of crazy that leaves Sean Payton as the coach of the 32nd ranked team in the NFL. But
it's not like before they picked Bo Nix, there seemed to be an argument that the Broncos were deliberately trying to throw the season to be the team that got the best quarterback in next year's draft. Right. I guess that you could still do that. I mean,
yeah, Josh Rosen and the Kyler
It's not
Murray.
Unprecedented anymore to take quarterbacks in back-to-back drafts, but it's just not given. I mean, why resource allocation perspective, why would you use the pick there on a quarterback in his mid-20s? I don't know why this is. I would be more interested in just seeing what Zach Wilson looked like in Sean Payton's offense than Bo Nix. Just because Payton is, claims to be such a quarterback whisperer and quarterback genius, I'd almost be more. Bo Nix, what is his? He's Kenny Pickett with worse hair and bigger hands.
If the Michael Penix pick hadn't happened to the Falcons, it would be getting a lot more conversation.
That's exactly right. The best thing that happened to the Broncos was the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, it was an insane pick. It was completely ridiculous. So, congratulations to the Denver Broncos. Thank you to Spencer Ray. Tell a friend. Spencer, I did the odds. Pony did the evens. I won it on the graphic. This is First and Pod. Peace.